Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and it's a pretty big week. Lots of returning books, some new stuff coming in. But before we get started, I want a quick reminder. I'm pretty sure all the free comic book days. Comics that are coming out. That's going to be May 6th, which is next Saturday, is free comic book day at your local comic shop. Most all shops participate in that. So, but check with your local stores to make sure that what they're doing and everything. So I will review those, hopefully get that video up by Monday so you can have an idea of what you should be looking for, what's reprints, what's previews, and then what's actually new stories. Some of them have new, just kind of varies. So we'll get that up. And a big shout out, obviously, to my local comic shop, Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, who has gotten the stores get the books ahead of time. So that way, one, we can review them and give you kind of an idea of, what's coming out for this year's free comic book day. Like I said, hopefully that review will be up Monday, so it'll give you a chance to kind of figure out what you want to get. And as always, make sure that you buy other product at your local comic shop, because they do have to pay for the free comic book days. They're minimal charge to them, but they still have to buy it. So make sure when you go to get some free comics, buy some stuff to help them cover the cost of the free comics. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get to this week's comics. First up, we have World Tree #1, written by James Tynion IV, with artwork by Fernando Blanco. So what this is so in 1999, Gabriel and his friends discovered the undernet, and they discovered a message board, World Tree, and they discovered that it was kind of dark and there was something going on with it. So jump to the present. What it is so there's L, who's an older brother, and his younger brother Gibson basically gets this World Tree, kind of thing. It messes him up, and he starts killing people. And so, L has, he goes to try to find out what's going on, why his brother's done this. And then along the way, there's this mysterious girl who, the only thing I can kind of decipher from it is that she's part of the World Tree, that like she's, not kind of she's not so much possessed by it, but she like understands it, where Gibson is actually controlled by this World Tree like glitch. And so that's really the first issue really sets everything up. It sets the characters and everything. And then it also kind of like has to do with like Gibson and the other people that discovered World Tree, and how they're, they know about it, and how they're going to like combat it. So, it's really interesting. Like I said, there's a lot of this first issue is an exposition, so it's really set up. The thing that's really I like, it's very disturbing. That's what's kind of interesting about it, if you can find disturbing interesting. Tynion really, sets a stage here for what could be. I think it's kind of fascinating, because it really shows like, how we've become a slave to like technology, and how like it can affect us. Obviously this is like, on steroids affecting us, but it's still like that same sort of thing. Blanco's artwork's really nice. I did really enjoy the artwork, and like I said, just be forewarned, it's a lot of exposition in this first issue, but I think it's a good setup, and I think it's something definitely to kind of keep an eye on. I liked it, and like I said, just be forewarned, it is kind of disturbing, so just be cautious of that if that might bother you. Next up, we have Green Arrow #1, written by Joshua Williamson, with artwork by Sean Isaacs. So a lot of this takes place after Lazarus Planet and stuff like that. So what Williams has done here, there's a lot of setup here. So we have Oliver, who has been transported to like this other world where there's manhunters. So then we have Roy, Red Arrow, who is Speedy. And then we have Connor, who is the current Green Arrow. And and then also Black Canary. So they're on the search for Oliver. And along the way, they come across Cheshire Cat, who is Leanne, who is actually Roy's daughter. And so, they're battling, they're trying to figure out where Oliver went. And then they get like transported to like different like worlds or whatever. And then Leanne actually gets transported to this world where Oliver is. And that's kind of the setup. I will say, I wouldn't say that it was super new reader friendly in some respects. Williamson does do a good job of kind of setting up, okay, this person's this, kind of gives a past and everything. So in that respect, but I think there's kind of the baggage of like what has happened before then, which it's kind of explained, but I wouldn't say it was super well explained. I didn't feel lost, but I did feel like, wow, there was a lot of stuff I have no idea what led up to this. But it's not fatal. It's just, it's kind of a little bit annoying. And I don't necessarily think that that's Williamson's fault because of, he's trying to like go from all this, stuff that's happened before while trying to do a new story. So I'll definitely, defend him on that. I think he's done a good job of setting it up, but like I said, it's very much exposition. There's a lot of explaining and stuff like that. I will say Isaac's artwork's nice. I would say it's a fair start. I think really the second issue on this particular book is going to be a big key to see where it's going to go, because, obviously Williams, like I said, has to get a lot of like baggage out of the way with the exposition in the past so he can kind of get on with the story. So, like I said, I'm not overwhelmed with the first issue, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because, like I said, it's very exposition heavy. I'm a big fan of Oliver Queen, so I'm kind of excited that he's back, and I don't mind all the other like arrows that are going around. That's fine. There's just a lot to take in this first issue, but I think it's off to a fairly decent start. Next up, we have Blue Book number 3, written by James Tynion IV, with artwork by Michael Avon Oeming. And then there's the backup, the True Weird Grande Pure story that's written by Lonnie Nadeller, with artwork by Jenna Che. So really, so this is, you can't jump in on this third issue. So it's really, Betty and Barney were traveling back home to get abducted by aliens, and now they're, there's obviously patches of things that they're missing from that trip. So it's Betty's having nightmares, and then Barney is becoming ill. So, they're basically trying to figure out what has happened, and so they go to the psychologist who does hypnosis on them. And so he sets it up so they don't know, he wants to hear their individual stories. So the stories, that there's not a bleed through. And it's really interesting because we really, this issue, we learn what Barney kind of went through with the abduction. And, so that really, it really kind of like, really reveals a lot of stuff, but yet not everything's quite revealed yet. And then of course, Betty's, we'll probably see that next issue with that. I'm really digging this book. It's definitely very X-Files oriented, but it really goes back to, Project Blue Book, which is this is the kind of starting point that Tynion and Oeming are building this story out of. I really like it. I like the fact that it's set in the, the 50s. I like the period theory to it because you don't have the technology. And, it's definitely during the, the 50s when there was like basically the UFO craze. So it makes sense to set it in that period. As always, I'm a big fan of Oeming's artwork, and I really think that his style and also the way the colors being used with this very, it's kind of almost black and white with spots of color, which is, I think, really makes the book just pop. I really like the True Weird story. In this issue, I don't even know how to explain it. It's super weird it follows history, but through this like character. And I really don't want to like give anything away, but it's really strange. But make sure you just take your time reading that particular story, because it does make sense once you get to the end, but it's just kind of weird as it goes along. But I think Naylor did a really good job on the story. Chaw's artwork's really, really nice, and I like that it's set, like in the past. I like, the limited color palettes that used on it. Overall, I'm really liking this book. I know a lot of people are, expecting like super, aliens and stuff. No, this is very much, very low key, Project Blue Book type stuff. So I'm really digging it. I still think it's well worth picking up with it, and I really like this issue a lot. Next up, we have Star Wars Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red, #1. So there's 3 stories in here. They're all short stories. There's Hand Shut Down, Part 1, written by Jason Aaron and Leonard Kirk, doing the artwork. Inescapable, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. And Disillusion of Hope by Torun Grombeck, with artwork by Klaus Janson. So, as with the other Marvel Black, White, and Red books, they're all short stories. Now, this is kind of interesting because the first story, Hard Shutdown, by Aaron and Kirk, is actually a part 1, so it's going to continue next issue. And what it is there's these, like bounty hunters or whatever, and they basically end up kind of capturing Darth Vader. Of course, he kills most of them along the way, but they do. The one guy does capture him, so that's kind of interesting. I think that was interesting. The wildest one is definitely the Peach Momoko, which is just like it's literally like a fever dream of the Empire and Darth Vader. That's that's the best way to describe it. I mean, the artwork is absolutely gorgeous, but it is a bizarre, very bizarre tale. But I really enjoyed it because it was very, non-Star Wars in a lot of respects. That's what I loved about it. The Dissolution of Hope is a really straightforward. It's the rebels attacking, and they convince a former empire to like blow up this thing. And I don't want to really give anything away too much more, but it's an interesting story. I'm a big fan of Klaus Janson's artwork, so that for me was a win. I think that the story's pretty straightforward. It's not. It's one of the okay stories. I mean, it's not. It's more interesting than I think it kind of should be. It's pretty basic, but I did like it. I think really the big win for this issue is the Peach Momoko, and I think it's always these kind of stories are gonna be like kind of some hits and some misses, but I think overall it's okay. Like I said, the Peach Momoko was really the strongest of the first 3 stories. And so for that, I think it's well worth checking out. Next up, we have the Unstoppable Doom Patrol #2, written by Dennis Culver with artwork by Chris Burnham. So this issue, there's a new character called the Worm, and it's about this boy, and he has like a worm inside him. And so they end up Beast Girl really likes him and befriends him. So they go back to their headquarters, where we now see kind of a lot of other characters from the Doom Patrol's past. We have Flex Metallo. We have Mento. And the chief actually, Niles actually shows back up. And so we kind of see what's going on. And we also learn kind of what's going on with Peacemaker and Amanda Waller and the Suicide Squad, how they're fitting into this. I don't really want to give too much away in the story because there's this really nice twist and everything. But I really like the thing I'm really liking about this is how Culver is taking this huge history of the Doom Patrol that unfortunately a lot of people don't know about. There's the original series. There's a very long Paul Kuppenberg run from the late 70s and the 80s. There's the John Byrne period. There's, of course, the Grant Morrison period and Rachel Pollack, who sadly recently passed away. And he's taking a lot from all of these different periods and kind of forming them into this like new, version of Doom Patrol that's very much steeped in the past, which I really appreciate. And so the good thing for new readers is you don't necessarily have to know all of this stuff in the past. I think it does help in certain cases, but I don't think you necessarily need to know all of that history. Culver is just using bits and pieces to tell his story, which I really like. And of course, the big win for this book is Burnham's artwork, which is absolutely gorgeous. And I love the opening spread with like the cutaway of their headquarters. That's kind of a very old school thing, and it was a great nod and wink by Burnham for that. And of course, I'm sure Culver wrote it into the script. I think it's really a wonderful book. I'm a huge fan of the Doom Patrol, and I'm really glad that this is a new kind of fresh start, but acknowledging the past to move it forward. So I really enjoy that. Next up, we have Kaya, number 7, written and drawn by Wes Craig. So after last issue's standalone issue, where we learned about how Kaya got her golden arm, this continues from the first story arc. Jin has been kidnapped, so Kaya and the lizard, her lizard friends are, now, he's been kidnapped. He's being taken to the kingdom of the mutants, and they have to cross over the poison land, which is basically just monsters and stuff. So, once again, I'm really dig this book, and this is why I continue to review it, because this is really a great book. Craig is just knocking out of the park, both in story and art. And this is also kind of a good jumping on point if you, because the trade paperback of the first 5 issues is already out. So pick that up and then pick up issue 7. Of course, you can try to find issue 6, because that is a standalone. But 7 really continues the story from issue 5. But really, this is an absolutely just wonderful book. It's a good all ages book. I wouldn't say super young, because there is kind of some scary things, but it's really, really good. I really like this book, and I really, it definitely needs a lot more exposure. So definitely well worth checking out. Really, at the very least, buy the trade of the first 5 issues, and then you'll fall in love with this book just like I have. Next up, we have Alien number 1, written by Delkin Shavely, with artwork by Andrea Baccardo. Now, what Marvel seems to be doing with both Aliens and Predators, what they're doing is each story, instead of continuing, they're going to do them as miniseries, which I think is really a smart move, because then it's self-contained. So that way, if, like, let's say this is 4 or 5 issues, then issue, say, 6 would be a new storyline. But for people who are not super familiar with comics, I think doing these license type books as miniseries is really a good idea. So this one is, so there's this family of the Zan family, which is the mom Beatty, Zasha's the daughter, and Dayton is the father. They're on this like ice planet because they're trying to find water sources for explorers so they can go out. And of course, along as they find out that there's frozen aliens on this planet, and then of course the Wayland Corporation comes in and says, well, we just bought your company, and now everything belongs to us, and you're screwed. And so that's really the basic setup. And then of course the aliens kind of come out at the end of this first issue, and basically, let's be honest, as we'll see in the next issue, all hell will break loose. Shavely's, it's here's the thing with these type of books. It is what it is. That Shavely is writing an alien story. I wouldn't say that it's particularly original in the sense that it has a lot of threads of stuff we've seen before, but I think it's a good alien story, and that's really what these should be. You're not going to break a lot of new ground here. But he's telling a decent story. Baccardo's artwork's nice in this. once again, you kind of get what you pay for. If you're buying an Aliens book, you expect an Aliens book, and that's what Shelvey and Picardo are doing here. Next up, we have Local Man #3, written by Tim Seeley and Tony Fleece, and the main story artwork is by Tony Fleece, and then the backup, kind of 90s image hero is drawn by Seeley. So in this one, Jack is trying to find Hodag's killer, and he comes across Stacy Wall, who she knows him and everything, but we're not quite sure how she fits in. But then we find out that the team that he was involved in find out that he's become Crossjack again, so they're gonna come to town because he ends up saving a preacher from getting run over. I think what I'm really liking about this book is the way that Seeley and Fleece are building the story, and really how Crossjack is, he's very much kind of like an everyday guy, and yet he was this superhero. Now he's kind of having to deal with like being an average guy, but yet because of what's happened to Hodag, he's now, trying to figure out what's going on. And as we see in this issue, I think there's a bigger story than Crossjack, and we'll also, we're kind of leaning into like, why has Crossjack really been kicked out of the team? So I think there's a lot. This third issue is really pivotal on this book, and Seeley and Fleece are just knocking it out of the park. I really like how they're doing the balance of like, murder mystery, 90s image superheroes, and yet, Jack, who, is very kind of an average normal guy. So I like how they're juggling all this and blending it together so well. And of course, Fleece's art on the main story I really, really love. And I like how Tim Seeley, when he does like the 90s image, like the version, it's just, kind of bat crazy artwork, and it fits perfectly. I really like this book, and I think this third issue is really pivotal to like where they're going. Next up, we have Clobbering Time #2, written and drawn by Steve Skroke. So what this issue is, so each issue appears to be somewhat of a standalone issue, because the first one had the Hulk. So this one has Wolverine, and so Ben has traveled to Krakoa Island to give like this speech, about mutants and how, we should all work together. We're kind of in the same boat, even though I'm not a mutant. And then there's a villain that comes to steal basically like the Krakoa life water, and then just it's a giant battle with the Thing and Wolverine, and it's crazy. It's just crazy stuff. Scruggs, first of all, his artwork's absolutely amazing. I love that each issue is kind of a standalone story, but kind of somewhat continuing of like Ben's journey. But like I said, I really enjoy this book, and there's one really great scene where he's giving a lecture, and I won't give it away, but he gives this really long, drawn out, like smart answer, and you're just like, what? And then you learn why he did it, and you're just like, oh, that's really funny. And I like the fact that there's so much dialogue on like one page that it's like, it's really nuts. And it seems odd and out of place, but when you find out what has happened, I think that makes it even funnier. You go, oh yeah, I see what Scroggy's doing here. I really like this book, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So definitely check it out. Next up, we have Deep Cuts, one shot, written by Kyle Higgins and Joe Clark, with artwork by Danilo Bayruth. So what this is. So it's set in New Orleans in 1917. So there's Charlie, this kid, who later is named Ace, and he runs into Jack Lately, who's a musician in New Orleans, but he's kind of a traveling, a traveling musician who's like kind of a snake oil guy. And so, Charlie starts to play with him, but he gets him a job at like playing in a whorehouse, and of course he has to lie to his grandmother to like say, oh no, it's a regular gig, it's like this private club. And it's really, I was really surprised how much I like this. I think the period obviously works really well. The whole jazz angle is just perfect. And really like Charlie's story. It's just a really good story. And I like how it's a really just enjoyable book. I really like it, and it's very, it's self-contained, which is really nice. And then you get Beirut's artwork, which is really just adds so much flavor to the story. I was really surprised by this book and how much I really enjoyed it, and I think it's well worth checking out. Like I said, it's a standalone issue, but I guess there are coming out with like different stories, but with different, I'm assuming different characters. I guess we'll see when we get the next issue, but it is kind of a one shot, even though it's an issue one. So we'll kind of see, but I think it's well worth checking out this week. Next up, we have the Riddler Year 1, number 4, written by Paul Dano, with artwork by Steven Subeck. So this really, we've been leaning up to Enigma from the Batman universe film. He's discovered this kind of mob thing that's he's discovered as his accounting job. But this issue goes back to when he was a kid in the orphanage and how he met Bruce and his father, and how he admired them and everything, and how he admired Thomas. And it's really this story was really spectacular. This issue really, even though it doesn't per se continue the story, it really blends into what has been set up in the first 3 issues. And I really this issue kind of really blew me away. I was very impressed by it. Overall, I've been really surprised how good of a writer Paul Dano has actually done with this comic. And then Subeck's artwork, especially in this issue, is absolutely gorgeous. This book has been a big surprise. And even though it kind of spins out of the Batman film, with the characters, this really has stood on its own. Even if you haven't seen the film, it really is spectacular. And like I said, this issue was just amazing, and it was very emotional, which was really surprising, which was really nice. So definitely continue to check this out. I really like this book a lot. Next up, we have The Neighbors, number 2, written by Jude Ellison S. Doyle, with artwork by Lisa Candassini. Once again, this is basically really the premise is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So Casey, who has been like converted into this weird town of everybody, they're like, it's like Stepford. She's acting really strange. So Oliver, the dad, and Janet are, kind of like noticing that she's weird, and things are kind of happening with the old lady next door and the younger daughter, the youngest kid. And it really just continues from the first issue. Once again, like I said, I had a tip that the first issue was very much Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but I think of that, but much more of a horror vein, a little bit more horror oriented. So I think it's interesting. I wouldn't say that I definitely am blown away by this book. I think I think it has an interesting idea, and I think Body Snatchers is a good concept. This issue moves the needle a little bit, but I would have liked to have seen it move a little bit further. But it does kind of build the tension that's going on within the family. I still think, I'm intrigued. I don't know that I'm sold on it yet, but we'll kind of see with the next issue. I think the next issue is going to really need to seal the deal of like, okay, we get that, this is a weird, town, and, that people are kind of possessed, but like, what's really going on? Why is this, kind of what's going on and why is this happening? So we'll kind of see where it goes in the next issue. Next up, we have Detective Comics 1071, written by Ram V, So pencils by Stefano Raffaele, Ivan Riaz, Eduardo Passia. And then the inks by Stefano Raffaele, Danny Miki, Joe Prado, and Julio Ferreira. And Juan Castro are the inkers. And then there's the Mr. Freeze backup story, Absolute Part 3, written by Simon Spurr with artwork by Casper Weingard. So once again, this issue really continues the story of the Orgum family and how it relates to Ra's al Ghul in the past, and how that ties into the whole thing with Ra's, Talia, and what they seem to be looking for in Gotham. I don't want to reveal too much, but we do find out that Vandal Savage is now involved with this, so that really opens another big can of worms in this story, and how it all ties to the League of Assassins. And, I really have to admit, Ram V is really knocking it out of the park here. He has written, this is a really big opus. And once again, you really need to have been reading from the first chapter of this. This is a book you cannot just jump into. But I really like how he's building this story over time, and that there's so many layers that are peeling back like every issue, that it's just really amazing that how he's taken this book in a direction that you rarely see in mainstream like superhero books. And I love that what he's really doing here. And of course, all the artists involved, you have Raphael, Riaz, and Pancia. Even though they have different art styles, it all works together because they're telling bits of the story that are like in the past and present, so it all blends together really nicely. And I really did like the finale of the backup story, the Mr. Freeze story by Spurr and Weingard. That really has been a nice complement to the main story, in that Mr. Freeze was a part of the story, but this is kind of a side story, a little bit, that is not hugely connected to the main story, but does kind of have shades of it, which is nice. I'm really digging this book, and Detective, like I said, Ram V is just knocking it out of the park on this book. It's definitely still worth picking up. Next up, we have Doctor Strange, number 2, written by Jed MacKay, with artwork by Pascal Ferry. So we kind of continue of, the Doctor's making house calls, and so this one, Moon Knight contacts him to, because there's this girl who basically her astral form is missing. So Stephen and Clea have to go to the Nightmare Realm to figure out, what's going on. And this issue kind of deals, with them trying to find the girl's astral form. And also that there's something going on in the Nightmare Realm, which is going to lead to, because at the end of the issue, we see Wong. I don't want to say why we see him, but there's something that MacKay is leading up to. And I think I like what he's done with these first 2 issues to kind of, get reintroduced to Stephen and Clea, and just making, like, the first issue was very simple, just kind of building momentum, and the second issue kind of builds on that, and then we see at the end of this issue, it's like, okay, there's something else going on, and that's what he's leading to. And I've been pretty surprised by this. I really like Doctor Strange as a character. I think he's just one of those characters that's kind of tough to handle, and MacKay's done a nice job here. And of course, Ferry's artwork is really, really nice. It's a good looking book. Definitely, if you're a Doctor Strange fan or interested in Doctor Strange, this is a really good place to start. It's a good ground floor for new readers. I think that's the big key to this book. And finally, this week, we have Sandman presents Deadboy Detective number 5, written by Pornsak Pichot, with artwork by Jeff Stokey, and inking assist by Craig Taufer. So Edwin and Charles, they're with the other kids who are recently dead, and they figured out that something's going on with Korean mystical things that are going on. So they really, so this issue kind of is bringing everything to a head, because they discover that Thessaly has been basically kidnapped, and we find out that the whole reason with all this stuff going on, that somebody is controlling her to use her power, and she's pissed. And so it's going to be up to Edwin and Charles to basically release her. And like I said, it's going to be good, because the next issue, I believe, is the last issue. So the Pornsak is really, I'm really digging what he's done with this, and bringing like different mythologies into like basically the dead world, and how he's handled Edwin and Charles has been really, really good. I'm really digging this. And then I really like Stokey's artwork. It's really a good looking book. We're at the 5th issue. The next issue is the last issue. When the trade comes out, definitely pick it up. I think what I've liked about this is it's been very friendly for new readers into like the Deadboy detective kind of mythology. And it's just been really a wonderful little book. Kind of one of the better Sandman universes, that has been done. So I've really been enjoying it. I'm very excited to see where Pinshot and Stokely take the final story. So that's going to do it this week. Thanks for watching. Boy, it was a big week. We had a lot to get through. So hopefully you stuck to the end. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner he's the owner. Runs a great store. Annie, Eduardo, Derek, and Wendy. I got a great team there. Great customers. It's a really nice comic store, and that's the big key. It's really about comics. He does have a few other things, but really it's about that. He offers, if you do a pull service, you get a discount on your new comics, and then you don't miss anything. Like, all these are in my pull box. He offers discounts on trades and graphic novels, mangas, and young adult books. Really, he's done a really good job of expanding like the all ages section of the store. He's really, putting the best foot forward to try to get, that's always to get new readers in there. And it's a really good store. I will be there next Saturday for Free Comic Book Day, helping out, slinging fresh free comics. But as always, make sure you support your local comic shop. Make sure you buy your pull list on a timely basis, because they have to pay for them before you get them. So really make sure you support your local comic shop. And as always, we end our show with be kind. Being kind to each other doesn't cost anything. Times are tough out there. I get it. There's been a ton of layoffs at lots of companies, and it's tough out there. But hey, being kind to each other, being kind to yourself is very important. Take care of yourselves. That's the big key here. Just take care of yourselves. And read comics. Comics always makes life better. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comments are welcome. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again next week, and watch out. Keep an eye out for the Free Comic Book Day video. Like I said, fingers crossed I can get it up by Monday. And that'll give you a preview of Free Comic Book Day, which is next Saturday. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. This is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com signing off. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.